Hi, welcome. Today in this session, we are going to understand what is AWS-VPC. So in the last session, we understood how some of the theoretical concepts of VPC. Today we'll go and do some hands-on session. So I've logged into my account. So let's get into services and click on VPC under network and content delivery. So if you scroll down, let's go to VPC, and here we'll see the default VPC which is created by AWS, and here we can see we're in a region called Mumbai, and depending on the region we'll see how many VPCs are there. I can also see VPCs in all the region. Okay, so there is a default VPC created, and it also creates a number of subnets equivalent to number of availability zones. Each of the subnet has a default route table connected, and there is an internet gateway available which will support both incoming and outgoing traffic to the internet. Okay, so let's go and create a VPC using a VPC launch wizard. So click on this launch wizard, and generally we can see 4 use cases. One is VPC with a single subnet, which means that it'll create a VPC and also a subnet, which is a public subnet which has an access to internet using an internet gateway. So this is something where if you need more subnets, maybe a public or a private subnet, we can always go ahead and create after we complete this wizard. Second thing is VPC with so in the second use case, we create a VPC with public and private subnets. So one of them is a public subnet where there is a route and it connects to internet gateway, and it also connects either a NAT instance or a NAT gateway, using which an instance in the private subnet can connect and then go through internet, and it allows only outgoing traffic and does not allow incoming traffic to the private subnet. Okay, and this is a use case where we have a VPC with public and private subnet with hardware VPN access. If you want to connect from corporate data center to a private subnet directly, we can use this, and it is only hardware only VPN connection, where this could be used as an extension to a corporate data center where we have a lot of services installed and available in AWS VPC. So in this example, we'll use VPC with public and private subnets, and let's get started. Select this, and so according to RFC 1918, as we saw earlier, there are multiple IP ranges where we can use for VPC, that is networking. So in this example, what we'll use is 10.100.0.0.16 as our setup block, and we'll call it as my web server VPC. And because we changed the setup block, the subnet must be within that, and we'll also specify change the subnets in the two available. So we can choose availability zone where it should launch. Let's say I want to choose public in South 1A and then private in South 1B, and we can leave it optionally, let it choose anything, but this is an example where we can create multiple subnets. So this is where we have a NAT gateway which will be launched on public subnet, and because it's a NAT gateway, it may change an IP address. We have to associate elastic IP for this. So in this case, because we don't have an elastic IP created, so what we can do is we can go duplicate and then go to VPC console again, and then on the left side we can scroll down to elastic IP and allocate a new address. So this will give a static IP address for us, where we can use this IP address for associating with any of the EC2 instances or NAT gateways and things like that. And if we have our own VPC IP address that we want to bring, we can use one by me. So I can use a public IP which is allocated from my company. So let's use Amazon pool, allocate a new address, and then it has given an address for us, and we can come back and then associate this elastic IP for this VPC. So this is basically where if you want to connect an endpoint where we want to use a DynamoDB or an S3 association, we can use this. For this now I'll just skip this, and then I want to use a default tenancy, and then let the DNS be DHCP enabled. So create VPC. So this all it gets to create a VPC, and then it may take a couple of minutes for the NAT gateway to create it. I'll pause this video and then come back once the VPC is completed. Yeah, so it took about a couple of minutes for it to get created. So once it is created, we'll see VPC is successfully created. Let's click on OK, and we'll review all the things that this wizard has created for us. So if you come back to your VPC, it has created VPC with the name and the CIDR block that we choose, and it has created two subnets. One is a public subnet, another is a private subnet. And if you look at the CIDR blocks for them, it is 0s24 for public and then 1.0.24 for private. And it has also created two route tables. One is it says main route table no, which means that this route table has an access to an internet gateway, a route to internet gateway for any destination other than the VPC. And the one which says main route table yes, which means that the moment you create a subnet, this is the route table which gets associated and which is basically connected to a NAT gateway. And in the internet gateway, we have an internet gateway created. Let's go and name this as custom IGW internet gateway, so that will be easier for us to identify. And also look at a NAT gateway. It has created a NAT gateway. Let's call this as custom NAT gateway. Okay, so let's come back to subnets, and let's look at public subnet. By default, when you launch an EC2 instance in a public subnet, we expect that instance should have both public IP and as well as a private IP. So just to recap, public IP is required for us to connect from the internet, and private IP is required for that instance to connect within the VPC. So when you launch a VPC, EC2 instance inside, by default, automatically there is no public IP assigned for this. So if you want to change the behavior, so we'll select this public subnet, go to modify auto assign IP settings, and then enable this. So this can be overridden when we are launching individual instances, but to make sure that every time when you launch, instead of manually selecting, we can make sure that any instance launched in this public subnet will also get a private IP as well as a public IP address. Okay, so this is the configuration of VPC. So let's go and see how we can go and launch an EC2 instance from this. So let's go to services and then go to EC2. And the moment the page loads, we can go and launch an EC2 instance. Let's say instances. Launch an instance. And I'm just taking a default configuration except for to change VPC. So I'm going to use Amazon Linux. Select this, and then I'm going to T2 Micro, which is available as a free tree. This is where we need to change. So select the network and select the VPs that we created. Let's assume I want to launch it in a public subnet. And because we enabled also auto assign IP, it says enabled. So I can always go and disable, but it's always enabled. And then optionally, we'll enable a boot script so that the moment instance starts, it should have a sample web page running. So I have a sample boot script which contains a page, as well as I have installed two websites, one on HTTP which is Greenfire, and another is on Tomcat, which is called Elevate. I'll just copy the entire boot script and put it in the boot script portion, that is user data portion of this. And we go to add storage. We are not going to add any other information here. Tags. Let me create a tag. Default, we always use a tag key called name, which will be visible on the dashboard. And generally, it is better to add another tag like say project. Let's call demo. And configure security group, because I want this instance to be accessed from the public subnet. We need to create a new security group which allows both SSH as well as 8080 and 80. So let me call SG for SSH and Tomcat, and we'll copy the same thing as a description and SSH, and then I want to choose only my IP to be shown here. And for HTTP, it can be from anywhere, and for the Tomcat, which is a custom port of 8080, and it is accessed from anywhere. Okay, so go review, launch, and if you have already created a key pair, use the same key pair and launch an instance. So this is launching an instance in my public subnet of the VPC that I've created. So how do you verify? You can go to the VPC. So it shows the VPC as well as the subnet where it is getting launched. Because I have enabled a boot script for this, the moment this instance is up and running, we should be able to see a web page on this IP address. So I'll quickly pause for a minute, and then the moment it comes back to running state, I'll resume. Yeah, here it is. Basically, I copy the IP address and then paste it and go. So this is basically I've installed, since I've installed HTTPD server, this is the default page, but I have overridden this with the boot script to have my own custom page. If I refresh, it should go and show me the green fair page, which is what we have enabled using a script. So if I try to access this using Tomcat, that is using the 8080, we see this is the index.html that we created from the boot script. And if I choose Elevate, which is another page installed on the Tomcat, it's available to browse. So this is an example where we have created a VPC, and then we have launched an EC2 instance inside a VPC and then connected. Okay, so to sum it up, let's go and clean this VPC what we have created. Number one is we need to go and terminate the EC2 instance, and once it is trying to terminate, let's close this tab as well, and then come back here, and then let's go and delete this NAT gateway, because NAT gateway is something which is not free. So delete NAT gateway. It may take its own time, and while it is getting deleted and while my EC2 instance is terminating, we may have to wait for a couple of minutes. Let me pause. Yeah, so now my NAT gateway is deleted. It took approximately 2 minutes for it to get deleted, and then what we need to do is we'll go to VPCs and select the VPC. Don't delete the default VPC. Select the VPC that we created and then click on delete VPC. This is going to delete a lot of this whatever it is created. So VPC is gone, and then we should not forget to go and release the Elastic IP, because Elastic IP is charged if you don't use it. So go and release an address. So we are back to normal, cleared all of them, and then this is a quick example and demo of how do we use VPC. So I hope this gives you a good introduction, and you can join me in the next session. Okay, thanks, bye.